Alright, we're back out here in the garage with the 2005 Neon. Finally got that set of control arms and bushings and things back on there. I still have yet to do the sway bar, but that's obviously no big deal. I think there's enough videos on the internet to where we'll go ahead and skip that one. Pretty simple. Today we're going to go ahead though and check the timing belt. The previous owner stated that they were not sure if the timing belt has been replaced or if it has been, when that was. Since the car's got about 145,000 miles on it now, it's high time that that gets to be replaced. So we'll go ahead and break that down for you. Frankly, it's a fairly simple process. You do need a couple specialty tools, but you know, you can get the job done even by going to AutoZone and doing the loan a tool thing. So not too terrible overall, and we'll go ahead and get started here today and see where that takes us. Okay, let's start off up top here. A couple things are going to have to come off for this to work. It seems right now like there's just an impossibly small amount of space to work in this engine bay, but that's not really the case. I had a guy describe to me one time that these Neons, it's kind of like a puzzle in a sense, in that if you pull out a few pieces, you can move around large chunks of the overall picture. If you look right here, you can see this upper motor mount deal here. This is going to have to come off. Looks like it's going to be a couple 18mm bolts that takes this piece off. On the way back in, I will have two polyurethane inserts to put in this. This one looks in fairly decent condition, so hopefully the polyurethane one will just help to stop that one from ripping and getting torn up. I've already gone ahead and put coil on all the fasteners up here. Another thing that's going to have to come off is going to be the power steering, and that you don't have to totally remove it. It's really not that big of a deal. You go ahead and there's a few bolts that are really, frankly, the most difficult things to get a hold of on here, and you can go ahead and take the power steering and set it up over here on top of the motor, and then that is out of your way, and that frees up the area of the timing belts cover to come off on the front. You will obviously have to take off the belts and things too to get this done, but not too terrible overall. We're going to go ahead and start with this guy here, and then probably go ahead and you know, loosen the belts, etc. As you can see, I've got the top piece out here. Actually, there was enough rust on the underside, excuse me, of the bolt that had to take an 18mm wrench and put it on the bottom. It was a deep offset, and then I was able just to go ahead and take the gun and quickly zip it off using an 18mm impact socket on the top here. 18mm bolt through there to get that off of the little perch here. Again, next thing we're going to do is go ahead and take the belts off. Alright, again, kind of hard to see in here. I'll try and get a light to shine on that, but in the pretty much middle of the screen there, you should see a Torx bolt. I believe it's T55 that goes in there, like so. And what I'm going to do now is actually to get the drive belt for the AC compressor and the power steering pump. What I'm going to do is going to drop the motor down just a little bit, because honestly I don't have a wrench or anything, or a ratchet rather, thin enough to get in between the frame rail and the tensioner arm. On the second generation Neons, you don't have the old-timey you know, bolt kind of stretching out the tension deal. It's the newer, more modern tensioner that's on about everything these days. So we'll go ahead and change that out and then get the belt off of the alternator next. Alright, once we got the belt off, which was fairly easy to do, again you just take, it's actually a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, and you reach down in there, if you got one thin enough, and stick it in there, and you can go ahead and move the tensioner enough to where you can pull the belt off. Easily said and relatively easily done. After that, you can go ahead and take your power steering pump off. What I went ahead and did was I took the pump off of this bracket first. That was 3 13mm bolts. You have to go through the holes in the pulley right there so that you can get to those. Then after I did that, I had to pull the pump off of the bracket, which I have since thrown down on the floor, and I'm not sure if I'm going to reinstall the bracket. Frankly, it wasn't actually bolted into this car. It's the bracket, it's basically the same bracket that is the only one there on the first gen cars. It's bolted into the block, and I believe also on the top of the compressor somehow over there. This one, like I say, wasn't bolted down at all. It was just kind of flapping in the breeze, although it was technically bolted to the power steering pump. So again, not really sure what I want to do there. It obviously made it a long ways like that. We're going to go ahead next and go ahead, probably try and remove this tensioner plate deal, and then that'll expose the timing belt cover. I guess we also have to pull off the belt from the alternator, but either way, we'll get those two items knocked out and we'll be right back. Okay, we just got out this bracket piece, the tensioner plate really, I guess, that the power steering pump rides on the right. At the, I guess, kind of the point of that triangle, if you will, kind of right in there. That's where the motor mount bolt goes through. And then the other three brighter colored spots where clearly there was a washer. The one down here by the arm, the other one up there, wow, this is really bad, and then the one over there. Those three are where the bolts go through it to hold it onto the motor. Comes up fairly easily. You gotta lower and raise the motor quite a bit. You know, they say lower and raise the motor slightly, but boy, I tell you what, you gotta jack this thing up quite a bit. I will say it'd probably be a lot easier if I would go ahead and disconnect the exhaust like I think you're technically supposed to do. However, this car being a Wisconsin car and with some of the corrosion we've already seen, I didn't feel like fighting those bolts. If I have some exhaust problems after that, you know what, I might just go ahead and pay somebody to do that rather than go ahead and fight it now. It's super cold outside, and this job frankly is a little bit miserable out here. So let's go ahead and get back to it. Next thing we're going to have to do is remove the crank pulley. Okay, we've got the, I guess the damper there, the accessory drive pulley, what have you. I'm going to go ahead and take off the bolt with an impact. That's usually the way I prefer to do it. You can definitely get it done without one, although it makes it a little bit more difficult. You know, the pulley wants to spin in that, but you know, I got to tell you, even back in the days when I didn't have an impact, they weren't too terrible, but now that I've got one, way better. We're going to go ahead and pull this thing off, and I'm going to show you the specialty tool that we use to pull the thing. Okay, I've taken off the bolt for the damper, accessory drive, pulley, whatever you want to call it. Got to get that off of the car now. So what we're going to do is we're going to be sticking in one of these various sized spacer guys here, if you will. Then I'm going to have my 3-jaw puller to go in there, and it's got a mouth in the head of the, or I guess the face of the bolt that fits over this, and then it pulls it right off. It is designed specifically for the neons. I've seen people do this with all various manners of contraptions, things they've cobbled together, and stuff that looked like it was just going to rip the pulley apart. I don't really care what you use, but I did decide to go ahead and do it, quote, the right way, because I know that these things do cost a little bit of money, and I've read various reviews, both positive and negative, about the replacement ones, so I thought I might as well go ahead and, you know, do it right. Alright, there you can see the 3-jaw puller on the damper there. We're going to go ahead, it's pretty well loose now, so I can just go ahead and pull this thing off. I already know that. So there it comes, revealing the actual crank sprocket behind it. There's the snout of the crank. You can see down here that there are a few, I believe, 8mm bolts that hold the outer timing belt cover on. One thing we're going to have to do once we get this off is go ahead and rotate the crank a bit so that way we can make sure the timing belt is lined up, because it is an interference motor, so you got to have the crank and the cam in proper alignment in order to go ahead and remove the timing belt and then get everything back on. Alright, somewhat difficult to see here, and I don't have it 100% perfectly lined up yet, but on the cam there is a notch right there. I know it's somewhat difficult to see because the rubber of the belt is kind of digging into it, but There is a notch right there. There's also a notch on the back side of the timing belt cover. By the way, I really like on the newer timing belt covers that there's only the two bolts on the bottom that holds it on. Maybe that's just this one, but nonetheless, there are only two bolts, and then it kind of just pulls off because there is this lip on the back side of the timing belt cover, which is great because I'm a huge fan of not having to dig around in all the oily, dirty spots to get that thing off. But nonetheless, you go ahead, you line that up. Next thing you're going to do is, depending on the version of the timing belt tensioner that you have, you'll either disconnect the little hydraulic piston guy after compressing it in and using an Allen key to secure it in place, or you will go ahead and just undo the little nut on the tensioner, and that will release the tension, and then you can go ahead and take out, I think it's 4 bolts on these that hold the tensioner in place. You'll remove your timing belt. You will then install the new one without moving the crank, pulley, or the cam gear. Once you're done with that, feed it around the water pump, etc., and then you're going to tension it from the back side. So make sure you start at the crank and then go around your water pump and then go around the cam gear and then pull it from the back side. Make sure that your marks haven't moved at all, and then once you get that done, you can go ahead and set the tension. The one that I'm going to be using today, and I believe actually you can retrofit any of the cars to the quote newer style that has got the what to me is a more traditional pump. I'll actually try and show that to you here now so you can see what I'm talking about, and I'll explain that process because there's just no way that we're going to be able to show that on the video here today. Just too cramped of a space. Alright, here is our new timing belt tensioner. Again, 4 bolts that'll hold it to the motor. You'll notice that on the right lower side of the idler pulley, I guess it's not really an idler, but whatever, the tensioner pulley, you'll notice that there is that kind of keyway looking cut to the right. When you tighten this thing, which by the way uses a 6mm Allen key is what they recommend, but to be honest with you, I don't really do that myself. Again, I go ahead and use a 1/4-inch drive little ratchet, and I think that works much better. You put that in the square drive hole on the face of it there, and then you go ahead and rotate it around. When you rotate it around and get tension on the belt, that little metal piece off to the lower right there will slowly start to move to the left. As it's moving to the left, eventually the smallest cut in that little recessed area will line up with the spring that you can see kind of peeking out from the bottom to the left of that piece. And then once that is in the middle there, that's when the timing belt tension is correct. You'll go ahead and tighten down the nut on the front side of the face of the pulley there. You can see that little nut next to where you have your square drive hole, and then that's how you do it. Frankly, it's really pretty simple. The hardest part is just getting the belt off, and actually I'm going to change the water pump today, changing the water pump, and then after that getting everything all kind of back together. Once you get to that point, doing this is a pretty simple part. Alright, I got to think about it, and since I'm changing the water pump, I think I failed to mention that earlier, maybe I didn't, who knows. The rear side of the timing belt cover has to come off, and for that, that's where the rest of the bolts come in. So I did have to take a few more of those off, although I think that there still are a few less, but nonetheless, there is the fact that this bolt for the cam's got to come off so you can remove the cover. I know a lot of guys will take like a small socket and put it in the bolt hole that is right there, and then use that to, I guess, stop the cam from moving so that way they can remove the bolt. I don't like to do that. I like to go ahead and use this tool right here. I bought it years ago for the old 2.2 stuff, and obviously I'm still using it on those cars, but I find it works well for the cams on the Neons too. I think a little bit higher torque on the Neon for the cam bolt, but still nothing ridiculous. And I'll just go ahead and hold it with one hand while I stick a long-handled ratchet in the other, give it a turn. That should loosen it up, you don't want to just go ahead and blow this thing off with the impact, because what can happen, it's just a pin on there, and contrary to popular belief, it's not the pin that stops the that stops the camshaft sprocket from spinning on the cam. That's just there for alignment purposes. It's actually the torque of the bolt, and that friction between the bolt washer and then the shoulder of the cam there on that front face is actually what stops it from turning. So that pin is really only there for alignment purposes. If you break that, that's a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off, get the timing belt cover off. We'll look at the water pump if I can get a good shot of it. That comes off, and then everything's going to be going back on in the reverse order. Alright, we've got the old water pump out and the new water pump in, after we remove the timing belt cover from the back side, of course. You'll probably be glad to hear the Goodyear timing belt kit that I got that came with the water pump, the belt, and all the accessories like the gasket here for the water pump, etc. I mean, it's a complete kit, and it actually has got like a little mini factory service manual set that comes with it. It's pretty cool. It's the best documentation that I've seen for anything so far. It had all of the all of the torque values for the bolts of the water pump, for the cam gear, for the cover, everything. So it was kind of cool to have that. I look forward to posting all of the torque specifications on the description for this video. This is on. Going to get the rear timing belt cover back on, and then the cam gear after that, of course. I've lost my heat out here though, so I'm going to head in. It's already getting cold enough to where I can easily see my breath. So we're going to go inside for tonight and come back out tomorrow. Alright, we got the timing belt rear cover back on, and I've already got my cam sprocket holder set up, and I've got my torque wrench set to 85 foot-pounds. And we're going to go ahead and see if we can get this guy to torque down here. As you can see, it does take quite a bit of effort to hold this cam sprocket at the same time you're trying to torque the deal here, I guess, really, torque the sprocket. But short lever on this arm. If I'm not mistaken, I think the 2.2s are like 55 foot-pounds. So using this tool does take a little bit more effort here, but a little bit of pushing and prying, and we will get it to where we can easily do this. There we go. So go ahead and give it just another click here. Yeah, we got it. So there's 85 foot-pounds. As you can see, the sprocket moved a little bit here and there, but it wasn't jumping all around. I certainly wasn't spinning it over, which, as we've already talked about, being an interference motor is a real problem. Once again, this tool paying for itself here. The most difficult part about that, quite frankly, was doing it while I was talking on camera. So we got that done. Next, we're going to go ahead and try and weasel that tensioner in there, get that all squared away, get it all torqued down, and then we'll be ready to put on the belt. Okay, this is kind of an interesting one here. You can see the original tensioner body on the right, and sticking up out of it precariously is that little sleeve that's kind of a spacer for the back side of it. If I'm not mistaken, you have to have that little sleeve in there, otherwise the bracket's going to be cocked ever so slightly to the back side there, which will cause the belt to ride off of the pulley a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, I think I had this problem when I did the one for my last Neon, but I didn't want to make a spacer or anything, so I just went with it. And I know that the belt does want to ride off of there, and frankly I think it's the front timing belt cover that keeps it from sticking off about 1/4 of an inch maybe. So not ideal. That car's old. I don't really care, frankly. I've got my money's worth out of it, so I moved on and didn't mess with it. But with this one, I looked at it and I thought, okay, no problem. I'll press this little sleeve out, I'll put it on the new deal, and no problems, right? Well, unfortunately, the only difference between this tensioner that's on the left, the new body, I guess, and the one on the right is that it's not the brand name. It literally just leaves the Littons, or however you pronounce it. It just leaves that name off of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the sleeve back into the original body, and then what I'm going to go ahead and do is take the new bearing assembly, and it'll drop right down on here, so that way I will be able to have a new bearing with a good condition and what have you. It'll stay on there with no issues, and I'll be good to go there. Again, also I would like to add that on the back of these tensioners, or at least the bodies of them, you can look, and somewhere on them, and I'll try and zoom in and make it all blurry for you here. By zoom in, of course, I mean get it up close to the camera. I'm not sure how well this is going to adjust here, if at all. Maybe. Please. Who knows? Well, regardless, take my word for it that on this tensioner, you can see that it's got the... Yeah, it's just not going to do it. Sorry, guys. It has got the original date code. So this one was made in the 3rd month of 2005. It is the original timing belt that's in the car. That's what I was afraid of when I got it. And so that's going to be what we go ahead today and fix. Because obviously with 150,000 miles on one of these, it's only going to be a matter of time before that timing belt breaks and interference motor disaster occurs. I'm going to go back down into the Shelby dungeon, press this piece back into this bracket, come back up here, get it installed, and we'll check it from there. Alright, again, difficult to see, terrible angle, but nonetheless, I do have down there the timing belt under the crank sprocket. On these, it's really best to start under the crank sprocket because it's got a little lip that essentially ensures that the teeth of the timing belt have to be in contact with that crank sprocket. So, kind of nice, a little bit hard to get started at first compared to some other designs that I've worked on in the past, but at the same time it is kind of nice because once you have it on there, it's pretty much on there, and then if the crank moves at all, the belt moves with the crank. It's not one of those deals where all of the various gears and things can be moving independent to one another without the belt touching. Now that we have it around the crank, again, the water pump orientation for that particular sprocket doesn't matter, so we're going to go ahead and put it around the water pump next. Then again, like I stated earlier in the video, I've got this cam lined up. The notch in the cam lines up with the notch in the cam cover, and I guess I could probably tilt up a little bit to show that, at least where I'm talking about here. Again, notch in the cam cover, both perfectly lined up. There's a notch on the crank sprocket, perfectly lined up with the arrow on the block. So, belts around the crank sprocket, around the water pump sprocket, around the cam sprocket, and then I will pull it from the back, which should take up what little slack remains, and then from there it'll go around the pulley here for the tensioner. Get that set, and then we're going to be good to go. Hopefully I'll have a little bit better angle when I come back at this next time. I got stuff all over here, unfortunately, so we'll go ahead and clean that up, but this is okay for now, and we'll report back. Alright, the timing belt is now on. Remember, when you put the timing belt on, as I described before, you want to go under the crank pulley, over the water pump pulley, then over the crank pulley here. Pull the belt from the back side to get it over the timing belt tensioner pulley there. Here's the deal. When you have got a new timing belt, oftentimes it can be quite difficult to stretch it over the tensioner. I mean, anytime you get a new belt, they're always a little bit tight. When I did this one, it was pretty darn hard to get over the tensioner, even if the tensioner loosened all the way. Did it once, set it up, set the tension properly by using my 1/4-inch drive ratchet to rotate that little assembly counterclockwise, locked it down with a 13mm wrench. I made sure, of course, that I was tensioning it properly with the little notch aligning the spring. One thing I will say about this is that I did not get it set right the first time. How did I know that? I went ahead and used the bolt for the crank sprocket to rotate the motor over 2 full revolutions at the crank. Remember that the camshaft is going to rotate, because the cam is twice as large, it's going to rotate at a different rate than the crank. So you rotate the crank over 2 times, that rotates the camshaft around to where it's going to be at the proper orientation. Now, when you've done that, go ahead and check the mark on the block along with the mark on the crank sprocket. Check the mark on the cam sprocket with the mark on the rear timing belt cover. If they line up, you're good to go. If they look like they're a little bit off, and I mean like, oh, well, it's just a little bit back or a little bit forward, go ahead, do it again. Oftentimes with a new belt, I find just a little bit of stretch and play from that first time of really tensioning it and spinning it around is enough to cause, I think, at least a little bit of human error on my part, if not just the belt loosening up and changing what have you, and then you end up being off ever so slightly because it's just not dimensionally right yet. Regardless of the case, you want to go ahead and check it twice. I had to do this one a second time, loosened it up, adjusted the belt, put everything back on there. Way easier to get over that tensioner pulley the second time. Then I went ahead, spun it around 2 times. It's absolutely dead on perfect now. I do not want to have to pull this thing apart again twice. As I said at the beginning, they're not too bad to work on once you get used to them at all, these little neons, but at the same time, with hands the size of mine, it really does kind of limit how much you want to do a job a second time because you didn't want to double check something. So I'm going to go ahead at this point now, and we're going to be able to go ahead, stick the front cover back on, go ahead and just really start doing this thing in the reverse order. Frankly, depending on how long this video starts out at this point, I'm not sure how much I'll show to get you back to the beginning here, but we'll get it done and you'll still be able to see exactly what needs to be done. But at this point, it's pretty much just the reverse of what we've already done. Okay, up next, we've got to go ahead and put our damper back on. This is actually a pretty simple operation here. What you're going to do is just go ahead, stick your pulley on there. Just kind of get it started a little. Doesn't have to be anything too crazy. Then you're going to go ahead and use this specialty tool here. Really what it is, you know, it's the old bearing riding on a bolt. You'll go ahead, and again, it helps if you got it just a little bit better on there to start. Go ahead and screw this bad lad in there. It'll kind of get it started. And then once you get that tight, you can hold one end of the bolt here with a wrench so you don't over tighten it. And then grab the other end here and go ahead and give her a turn. As you turn this nut, it will press the damper back on the crank, and that'll be a great time. When it's fully seated, you're done. Just back off from the little ways, back out the bolt. Then you're ready to go ahead and install your actual crank bolt there to, I believe, 105 foot-pounds of torque. So we'll go ahead and do that next. Okay, we've got our bolt all the way in there now. So as you can see, we can just go ahead and start turning this nut on here. And just as easy as anything, it presses this pulley back on here. And kind of show you a little bit. See, if you don't hold the nut there, it'll want to spin on you in that. So just go ahead and give that a hold. Do this slowly but surely. No fast way to do it. Once we're done with this, we will be able to put our belts back on. Of course, I'll have to go ahead and, like we talked about earlier, I'll have to go ahead and decide what I'm going to do with that bracket for the power steering pump. You know, am I going to go ahead and leave that off, or am I going to put it on? We'll see. It kind of depends on what bolts I find around. I'll tell you one thing, the bolts tend to fall down where the washer fluid reservoir is on these, and I know that because I found a ton of old nuts and bolts in that area when I dropped a socket down there earlier. So look out and try and avoid that. Alright, we've got all the belts and everything on the car. I mean, it's pretty much ready to go. I got the motor mount back in with the bolt through the side, I guess, that pivot point, I guess if you want to call it that. The last thing we really have to do here is go ahead and put these polyurethane motor mounts in. Basically what you're going to do, and I'll tell you right now, it is going to be tough to get them in there. It's going to be a real kind of a press fit here, which is kind of good. I mean, that's what you want. That's the point, right? But anyway, go ahead, press these down in there. Well, I will in a minute, I guess. And when you do that, there will be a washer that goes over here. Just be careful because the washers are two different sizes because there's two different size bolts that do these. One's a 15mm head, the other's an 18mm head, and you do also have an adjustment here. That's why the hole on this far side is oblong there. There's an adjustment, I think it's like 4.7 inches that you want to have between 2 points on that top little strut mount guy. And I'll go ahead and show you that when we get these things in there all ready to go. And that'll be kind of nice because we'll be finishing this project up. We'll put some coolant in it, actually do those sway bar mounts I've been talking about, and then be all set. Okay, here we are. This is going to be the final, I guess, segment of this video. It's been too long coming, but at the same time, it's brutally cold out here, and it has been the entire time I've been working on this project. Right now, I'm halfway through with the lateral links in the back, which is a nightmare to do the rest. I want to go ahead and try and finish this thing off by showing you exactly where you need to measure so that you know that the motor is in the right spot. Right between this post here on the motor mount, and then of course there's a clip in it for your washer fluid line, but between this hole and that stud you need to have about 4.7 inches in order to have it spaced out well. So you just measure from the center here to the center of that hole. Mine is just shy of 4 3/4 inches at last I measured, so I'm pretty well satisfied with that. Make sure you get it as close as possible. I actually found the motor to be fairly hard to rotate with the jack under it. I wasn't sure, again, if it was the fact that I left the exhaust up there so I wouldn't have to replace all the exhaust bolts or what. But I'm basically calling this job done. I got everything back in the car as it should be. Kind of nice, actually. It is a little bit of a noticeable vibration with the solid, well, I guess the inserts into the mounts. I mean, you can definitely feel the motor vibrating much more than before. But still, I'd rather do that than have mounts that have just disintegrated on me. And I can tell that these will last a while, but they're not perfect. So that's going to finish it off for this one. I appreciate the views, and I'm going to have more neon videos coming because I don't anticipate this car not needing work for any amount of time, really. It's going to be probably one thing after the next, but always upgrades. You know, anytime maintenance occurs, I always want to do an upgrade and make it a little bit nicer. So we'll catch you in the next video.